Tabitha, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, David. I'm Tabitha Layne. I am Senior Vice President and Director of Brokerage Services with Sunwest Real Estate Group.
Cool. And what do you do as the Senior Vice President?
Yes, so I run the leasing division of our company. We're a small boutique, full-service brokerage firm here in Dallas, Texas. So I oversee all the leasing of our portfolio and help drive business development as well.
And around how many buildings is that?
So as of right now, we are, it's about 20 buildings,
Wow.
just over 2 million square feet.
Wow. So you have a really big responsibility.
I do.
Do you find that you do more administrative work now or more showing of spaces, or how do you kind of divide that up?
Thank you for asking. I asked for it, and I sure did get a full plate. No,
Yeah.
I have history with Sunwest. This is actually our 20-year anniversary as a company.
Wow.
Proud to say this is my 15th year with the company. I launched our leasing platform when it was non-existent, and so I'm very proud to be part of that. And answer your question directly, gosh, it's every day is a little different, but I do find myself doing a little bit more administrative work than certainly preferred.
And that's interesting because I always see you like active in showing spaces,
Yes.
right? What makes a good tour? What do you think people really want to hear about when you're touring a space? What makes a Tabitha tour different from anybody else's tour?
Oh, thank you. I love that pointed question because I try to personally carry that throughout my tour. I want to be memorable as a salesman, but more importantly, the product I'm selling, the building that I'm selling. And so how do we differentiate ourselves? Really to be as personable as possible. Nobody likes a salesman. Let's be real. Let's be honest.
Right.
So try not to be that salesman, that pushy salesman, and be more personable. Ask the right questions. Lean in.
What helps you, do you think, not be that type of a salesman? I think when you said ask the right questions, I think that's a very important, point. What is it about asking questions that helps you kind of like tailor a sales, I don't want to say pitch, but a sales tour?
Yes. Trying to really identify who is this prospect, what is important to them, and not be as, stick with the script. And because every person and every company, every need is different. It might fit in the similar box as the last company we signed a lease with, but everyone wants to be treated differently and personably and feel special, and to give them that attention. So to try to figure out what's important to them, what's driving their decision, and hone in on that. Don't take every tour the same way. You might go in with your script and your tour path, if you will, but try to adapt and pivot when you pick up on those things that are important to that prospect.
It sounds like you're listening to their needs more than telling them what their needs are, which
Excellent.
is very different. Yeah.
Yes, I really try.
I think good lawyering is that way too. Asking a lot of why questions. You have someone come in and they think that this is the solution they have, but sometimes there's an easier solution or a different solution, but you just have to ask them a lot of, why do you think that? Why do you want to do that? Why do you think this is better for you? Why do you think this is a worse solution? So
yes, you're exactly right.
So one of the things that I love about working with you is your very positive and outgoing personality. You're an absolute pleasure to be on the other side of the brokerage, drafting things for deals that you've worked on. I mean, what things, and I'll tell you after you tell me, what things do you think make you work well with attorneys?
First off, thank you. Thank you so much, David. I want to be remembered that way, and you want to work with people that you like, and I want to be liked.
Yes.
And I have to give you the same compliment because you are wonderful, exceptional, and different to other counsels that we work with. And so I appreciate that compliment, number one, but secondly, that to think creative and out of the box and not be, you aren't that, black and white attorney and can see a gray area and talk through it. It's situational. And I love our conversations when we pick up the phone and talk through, okay, this one is a little unique, and how can you craft that language to adapt to this weird one I'm throwing at you?
Every time it helps because we always come up with a solution collaboratively, right? I have the legal language, and then you have the deal terms that are important to the landlord or to the tenant even.
Yes.
And I think that really is an important synergy that most brokers and lawyers don't have. And I think you and I have that, right?
I absolutely agree.
Yeah,
and so what I try to serve up to you is as much detail as possible,
Yes.
probably more than you want sometimes.
Yeah.
But then, so when I do that, I try to set you up for success, so that way we're working with, a clean document to execute together quickly.
Exactly. And that was my loaded question, which is you give very clear LOIs, like everything that is necessary to draft the lease is there in the LOI, and you also provide like context. So you'll give an email, and the email will have conversations you've had maybe with ownership or with the construction team that's building out the TIs, and it gives myself and my staff a really like robust picture of what we need to do, so that the more we do that, the more accurate our first drafts are going to be.
Right.
I really do appreciate that. That's something I think that's a mark of a truly good leasing broker, as opposed to what we get sometimes, which is just an email with like, this is the rent, and this is, and then what happens is everyone gets frustrated because we're back and forth because we should have just solved all this immediately with that wonderful, it takes you more effort, absolutely. It absolutely takes the leasing broker more time to do that, but it saves time after that. The deal gets closed much faster.
Exactly. You're right. And so every party's happier. There's less probably legal fees involved.
Always, right?
And so
or if you're flat fee like me,
exactly.
it saves us time. It gets commissions paid faster, people in the space faster,
yes.
and us done with our job faster.
Yes.
So I think that's it's just like a win-win-win situation.
Exactly.
When do you feel frustrated with working with counsel? Not necessarily me or anybody, but just what are some deals you've had where you're just like, the lawyer is really messing this up?
Mm-hmm. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is perhaps errors that might be simple errors that might be address or a clear deal point that was put in an LOI that might have been overlooked in that initial draft.
Got it.
That's a little tricky at first, because then I actually feel I'm hesitant to send that correction.
And why are you hesitant to send that correction? It's interesting.
I hesitate because I don't want to offend,
right.
your counsel by their efforts.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I want to do a good job and serve up,
Absolutely.
here's what I found. And, you shouldn't take emotion out of an email, but at the same time,
you're absolutely right. And I think that a lot of people feel hesitant to correct a lawyer when the lawyer, frankly, probably shouldn't have made the mistake in the beginning. And the mistake could be made from one of a number of things, I always feel. Like, you don't have enough people on your team drafting leases. You don't have enough people on your team so that you can't adequately proofread the leases. You're not intelligently leveraging technology now, which enables me to proofread and look for defined terms and do all that kind of work. That used to be manual and take forever and take an extremely expensive staff to do. You don't need that anymore. And I think that that's a really valid thing. Is like, it's frustrating. And then you feel, oh, why am I correcting the landlord? And I think leasing brokers, specifically landlords, not brokers, leasing attorneys, specifically landlord side leasing attorneys, tend to be the sloppiest because they're always going off of a form. And they have an entry-level associate blast through the form as fast as they can and send it, expecting that this is going to get worked out by the tenant's attorney, who's going to come back and fix all of the deal points.
Yes.
And I think that is one of the, and I just thought of this, one of the big bottlenecks that can always be addressed through a better process. Because, obviously, it's not like the lawyer is dumb or is careless.
Right.
They're just trying to blast through this and save everybody time and money and hoping that the tenant will then pick up on that. Whereas if the landlord did it properly the first time by leveraging a process or technology or something, we wouldn't have this issue.
That's right.
So that's getting an associate at X dollars an hour to proofread a lease is probably something that most landlords don't want to pay for. Right. And now I think in this day and age, you shouldn't have to rely on the broker, and you also should be able to rely on technology and paralegals and people like who have experience in this stuff on your side. So that's a very, very interesting point. So errors. What about time? What about delays?
Yes, that's enormous.
And what do you think delays are caused by? When you see like the whole leasing process, what makes you like nuts? When is it the lawyers taking too long? Why do you think the lawyer's taking too long? It's just kind of interesting to hear from your perspective.
Yes. So yeah, time kills deals
Right.
from A to Z, as you mentioned already. And so when we've agreed to terms and now we're drafting, now it's crunch time. And to your point, you don't want to. You want to speed through it to get the deal done, closed, everybody gets paid and happy, but you have to be mindful of errors, like you just mentioned. Right. So where I get frustrated in a delay, you're setting an expectation to the tenants representing the other party, the signing party,
right,
a certain reasonable timeline to expect that first draft or that response, and when you don't follow through, it could be a minor reason or, excuse why that's delayed, but the perception on the other side could be enormous.
Interesting. What do you think the perception is? Like they don't care about us, or why don't we start looking somewhere else because these guys clearly don't want us in their building?
Yes, which could be is silly because is certainly not the case.
Right.
But perception, unfortunately, can mean everything to some people. And not only just perception, but could this delay our construction timeline? And it's
very important.
Then there's a commencement date, then there's delay, and there's language that we're working through in that lease. Well, if the landlord causes delay, here's what happens, and if the tenant causes delay. So then, as we continue to delay, there could be more language changes, and
completely.
So it's almost a snowball effect.
Absolutely. It's almost like people start thinking about all the problems that might be there because it's just sort of sitting there on the shelf, and then your mind kind of goes. And
yes. So it's almost get it signed and move on so they don't have time to think about it.
Sure, exactly. No, exactly. And then do you think that there are times when the landlord's attorney or any attorney, tenant's attorney too, adversely impacts the relationships of the brokers? Do you think, for example, like if I give you a red line and I have some nasty comment for the tenant or they have some nasty comment for me, what do you think how do the brokers react to that?
Surprisingly emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you get that on the counsel side, and no need for posturing or emotions. This is business. This is a business transaction. Honestly, why I love to focus on commercial than residential.
Right. No, truly.
I mean,
truly, yeah.
So there's an emotional reaction, and that how the broker reacts and how the brokers are corresponding. Then it makes me second guess, how are they conveying our messages to their clients? So
I always worry about this,
yes.
right? Because I'm sort of like, sometimes I'll come back with a red line, right? And I don't want to put in a lot of comments because I don't want to start a whole argument,
sure.
right? And I don't want to rationalize what I'm doing. I feel it's like commercially standard. But at the same time, sometimes I want to put in a paragraph that explains some of it. But what that means is you expect that the person on the other side is going to be rational, right?
Sure.
And you say, okay, like this is like market standard. And then you have a tenant lawyer that wants to just rip everything up because they're hourly. And, and so the poor tenant has to be stuck in this where they're fighting even commercially reasonable things. Yes. And that is always a challenge that I face. How do you act as a buffer between the two? I mean, do you prefer, if you could tell me, David, you can tell me, David, put comments in or don't put comments in. What do you think is best? Do you think it depends or?
It does depend. I appreciate and I want your comments, and here's the reason why. So, you're serving up your document, and even if there aren't comments in the document, I love in the body of an email, here is why I did this, or if they come back with this response, some guidance from you on clearly, I mean, you're more educated than myself.
Well,
I mean, working with counsels, you have a reason. You have a rational...
Right. And but you also have a reason as to why you do things too. And it helps me when I say I'm doing it this way. If you read that and are like, oh, David doesn't understand this fact about the deal. Because that's really important, right? Because I wasn't, as I said, I wasn't there in the parking lot when you were talking with the tenants broker about X, Y, and Z. So I have no idea, and it's something that didn't come up until now. And you're thinking, and you realize, oh, David's operating on this assumption that's totally wrong, right? So I got to tell him so that he doesn't put his foot in his mouth here. And that, I think, that's a very interesting comment, right? It's like putting comments in the body of an email explains why I did what I did, but then it's like then you can relay that to the other side, right? And when they come back, you don't even have to go back to me. I've explained why I did some legal type stuff, right?
It empowers me to be, it assists me with being that buffer in between, because at that point, the brokers are really the middlemen at this point, just get the deal signed for both parties, and empowering me with that, those thoughts, that knowledge of whatever it is, why you respond in the way you did, it does, like you just said, prevents a little bit more back and forth and allows me to share that information with the broker. He can share it with the client, and it just, I think it's a smoother process.
It is because you're even though you have a tenant broker and a landlord broker, I feel like it's less of an adversarial relationship than it is between two attorneys. Because I think attorneys just naturally think that advocacy means adversarial, right? As opposed to two people having a healthy conflict. Yes. When you have just two people have a difference of opinion and they just disagree, but it's not an antagonistic or a fighting kind of relationship. Yes. You just represent your side, they represent their side, and you both want the same thing. The tenant wants the space, the landlord wants to lease the space, Right. I think that's so interesting how one thing that you said about how after you do the deal negotiating that you kind of feel like you sort of are more of a facilitator. Do you feel that way, or do you feel that there's still sort of negotiation, like almost like a negotiation of personalities that goes on after that?
There is still, and your me, myself, and I, how you shepherd that deal over the finish line is impactful. It's not just sit back and just passing documents back and forth, being in tune with the deal, knowing what's going on, and seeing it all the way through, and not just sitting back and waiting for that paycheck. That is the way I like to operate. I want to be fully invested, get it done, so everybody is confident and comfortable with what they're signing for their business to be successful and move forward. And
because as a landlord, you want the business to be successful,
Absolutely.
Obviously, because you want them to pay their rent, and you also want them to be successful. Just because you're a good human being that wants to see people succeed.
Yes.
And that's such an interesting point too, because it's like this is their first interaction with you as a landlord through you,
yes.
right? And like you're almost like truly the relationship manager. Whereas the lawyer is not. I mean, the lawyer is just some like dude in an office like me. I've never met the tenant. I probably never will meet the tenant. And I think that's such an interesting thing that lawyers really need to respect more, is of that relationship that you then have with the tenant and also the tenant's broker, because trust me, you're going to probably be flipped eventually, and you might not be because you do mostly landlord side, but you could have someone who's going to be like, who wants to go into like a tenant that you may have represented wants to, lease from them and
Certainly.
stuff. So you focus, your primary focus has been in the past representing landlords, but you do a lot of things, right? Obviously, Sunwest is a full service shop. I mean,
yes.
Property management, construction management, everything. You guys have got your hands, I think you're investing now, so you've got your hands in a lot of things, right? Tell me more about your broader perspective, not just being a landlord broker. Tell me more about kind of the other stuff that you do and your unique perspective on commercial real estate in Dallas.
Sure. Yes. I mean, so you nailed it on the head. We're full service brokerage, and yes, our bread and butter has mostly been office project leasing or landlord representation, but we have a mixed portfolio of office, medical, flex to retail, and tenant representation services. So meaning, working on the other side, representing the tenant, seeking the right space. And that's the beauty of the entrepreneurial spirit of Sunwest Real Estate, and why I love it so much, because we aren't cookie cutter. We aren't kind of sectored into this one avenue of revenue stream. Allows us to continue to grow, expand, allows our team members to expand their career and knowledge. And so really dabble in a little bit of everything, and which keeps us, diverse and agile. And
do you find that you're drawn to one more than the other?
I am. I mean, just from cutting my teeth in project leasing and landlord representation, yes, I'm drawn more.
But you did a little bit of everything.
Absolutely, yes.
And that seems really important, because then you really know how the business is run.
Yes.
Like, the struggles of like a property manager. I don't know if you did construction management. I don't know like if you ever did anything like that, but it's not like necessarily like, that seems like you really do need to know construction.
Yes.
But I bet like you work so much with the construction guys,
That's right.
Which always, I think, you can tell the lawyers that did construction law before, because they totally can get that landlord and tenant work letter down. Like, they completely understand the scope of the project. Whereas for me, I'm not as familiar with the construction stuff. So sometimes I think it takes a little bit more to wrap my brain around, like, what do you need to put in this thing to make it right-sized for the project? So tell me, like, what is it then that made you decide to stay at Sunwest for this long? Because there's clearly something that keeps you driving, if you drive to the office, driving to the office every day. What is it that you love about Sunwest? Specifically, like, is it like people or vibe or what is it?
That's it. The entrepreneurial spirit is real. That's the breath of the company, and how we've pivoted to and adapted to the, ever-changing world and the ever-changing commercial real estate market. Pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, you have to continue to evolve. And we've done an excellent job from, right on site in the building to how we are representing space. How do you plan space out? What do companies really need or think about, bringing something to the table that they might not have thought about? And so the true entrepreneurial spirit on how we operate, but also the trajectory of the company and how we're pivoting from just that office model to much more mixed use, equity opportunities for our employees, our staff, and really the people. As you said, is it the people? Is it the vibe? It's the people. Mark Grossfeld's the principal of the company and founder, and working together now 15 years. Really, took me under his wing. When I take a step back, when I mentioned I'm now my 15th year with the company. When I first started, I was hired as leasing admin. I had no commercial experience. I had a plethora of multifamily experience, starting from, on-site leasing to assistant manager to property manager, and really wanted to push my way into commercial. And Sunwest took a chance on me, and so I was hired in management side, and quickly showed that I was more capable. And as we were growing our portfolio back then, and now that was 2011, I saw an opportunity that we really should expand our offerings, not just property management and the managers leasing the spaces, expand another service line to leasing, project leasing and tenant rep and revenue streams. And so I launched the leasing platform.
See, I didn't even know this about you. This is amazing.
Really?
Yeah, this is fantastic.
This is
that's
my
huge.
story.
Yeah,
and this
that's
was,
huge. Yeah.
I'm going to date myself now. That was back in the day. I was 26, 27, and here with the principal of the company saying, you're up for promotion for property manager. And I said, here's a 5-page essay why you should pay for my real estate license, take a chance on me, and start a new platform. And
I think it's paid off, too.
I think so, too.
I think that's paid off for the company.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was a pretty good investment on Mark's part. But
yes.
No, that's really cool. Like just the fact that you felt the ability to grow in one place, and there was management that understood like how to do that, right? Yes. Because sometimes if you have management that isn't really that like I guess, adept at pivoting, they're like, okay, well, Tabitha just does this one thing, and she's very smart, but we need her to do this one thing. And if she wants to do something else, then maybe she should look elsewhere for a job. But growing really smart, capable people in like the context of one company, I think, is such a great. It's a real testament to the way that Sunwest grows people. In fact, when I think about the team that I've worked with at Sunwest, they've pretty much been the same cast of characters for 7 years now, right? So that is really, really true, right? There's a lot of that consistency in there, which I think is really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because really longevity builds credibility, but also, just sticking to the norm and not growing and moving forward. You're not doing yourself a favor, your team members a favor, your clients a favor. So you've got to evolve and push it to the next level. And you're exactly right that when there's talent on the team, we want to put that on a pedestal, lift it up, and certainly if they want to be, and highlight that and grow. And it's wonderful. It's a small. It is a difference in the small boutique firm versus the large national to international shops.
They strike me as having a lot of rules. Like, this is the way you do it at blank.
Yes.
Whatever the big firm
exactly
is.
Right. Yes.
And that always, whenever I talk to someone who works, and I work almost exclusively now with smaller regional like brokerages, property management companies, and that's what everybody says to me, right? Is there is so much more room for innovation, being an intrapreneur and an entrepreneur, in the company. And I always think that's what makes it so pleasurable working with groups like that, is that everyone kind of thinks outside of the box and wants to get the deal done, What do you think would be like, what do you think is, like, if you had to name one or two things that make a great leasing broker? When you see someone else, right, because there's definitely people in the community and you're like, that is a good leasing
Absolutely.
broker. What characteristics do they have? I bet you have the same characteristics, but what characteristics do they have that you think are really terrific that leasing brokers should espouse, should have?
Thank you, David. So, number one, I think we mentioned it earlier, the ability to listen, really listen and treat people with the same respect regardless of the size of the deal. Be more relational than transactional. Hey, this is a job. We're all here to get paid. I'm here working for the money too. But listening and treating everybody with the same respect, regardless of the deal size. You never know when that 500 square foot could be 500,000 square feet. And continue to embrace those relationships with your tenants, your fellow brokers out in the community. And so not only listening, but focusing on that relationship. And this might sound funny, but this is a motto that I have and I share with my team members, which is the 2 F's to not F up. And that's follow up and follow through.
Nice.
If you're going to say something, follow through with it. And you probably should follow up to make sure that you're going to get a deal done.
I like that.
That way you don't F it up.
I like that. That's a very, very, I should put that on my, website or something.
I know, I need to brand that.
That's terrific. That's very, very, very good.
No, thank you.
If you could grow a lawyer in a laboratory, okay, like Frankenstein's monster, and what would that lawyer be like and do for you? Like, how would this, we're making the ideal lawyer now, okay? Like, what characteristics would they have? Yes. Describe them, and you don't, you could just basically how would they, what kind of services would they provide, and how would they interact with you and your team? Like, how would they help you better, basically?
Yes. Okay. Having, obviously setting the lease template up where it's very clear, kind of, we can fill in the blanks, makes it simple for, our team to even pick up and use without changing any legal language. That is immensely helpful to have some prepared, agreed upon templates that we're not doing any legal language, just dropping in deal metrics, and, quick turnaround times, and sharing their thought process on why we responded the way we did, and that guidance, because it, again, empowers me and our agents to know, kind of the legal thought process behind it, but also empower us to go back and have conversations with the other party and perhaps spend less time on that transaction. So really templates, engage thoughtful conversation, quick turnaround.
And do you think that like landlords care about things, and this is a loaded question, like having fixed costs, having of course quick turnarounds, obviously, because time kills deals. Fixed fees seem to be very important because then no matter what you're going to be dealing, the landlord ownership is going to be dealing within a set of parameters. I think a market lease is very important too.
Yes.
Something that is down the middle, not overly landlord friendly, because I think that reduces negotiating time. And do you find that some landlords still stick to market unreasonable conditions and won't bend? Do you think that is a problem?
Yes, and yes, I think it's a problem.
And then how do you think it can be addressed? Do you think any attorneys come to you, like, for example, I am very interested in finding always modifications to my lease forms that are closer to market, and every year revisiting that because the market will change. We'll go from a tenant-friendly environment to a landlord-friendly environment, but you can't have, like, you never, as a landlord's counsel, obviously, you don't necessarily want something that's overly tenant indulgent, but at the same time, like, there are things that are way too landlord, like, restrictive on tenants that will always get picked up on that should be taken out of leases depending on the leasing environment. Do you find that lawyers tend to want to do that with you, sit down and readdress their lease form ever, or is it just that's something that we're starting to do now is we're sitting down with brokers and we're going to have a come to Jesus with the legal team, and you're going to tell us this lease is complete, like, this is just not market anymore. This indemnity provision is not market anymore.
Yes.
Or it's not standard for this market. Because in some markets, like I practice also in Hawaii, and it's a completely different animal there.
Sure, yeah.
People, fight over totally different things than they do here. And what landlords do typically is very, very different. It's just kind of like, like local custom,
Okay.
what's okay and what's not.
Yes.
So that I think is something that really, really could have a positive impact on the length of time that we're negotiating and stuff. And also just in terms of, like, there are things in a landlord lease, like look at force majeure provisions or eminent domain. Like, these are things that are really not going to be coming up, and tenants lawyers always pick up on them. And now, because of technology, we have sort of a rule, which is I feed all of my red lines into my database, and if something keeps getting redlined, I stop and revisit it, and I ask the brokers now,
Smart.
if I get 5 red lines in a row, say, or 5 out of 10 leases, and they're all redlining the same thing, I'll stop and say, something about this provision is not working in this market. It's way too landlord friendly. We need to dial it back in certain ways so that it still protects the landlord, but isn't obnoxious anymore,
Yes.
So, and I think that is very helpful, in a helpful way technology kind of has been kind of adapting. And there are definitely, I'm sure, in your battery of lawyers, there are lawyers that you think are much more reasonable, right, than others. Is that sort of the case? Do you feel that some lawyers are naturally more antagonistic? And when you know that they're like the tenant's lawyer, or tenants know that this is the landlord's lawyer, they're like, this is going to be a problem?
Yes. I've been fortunate enough to not work with a lawyer that's been kind of tagged that stigma.
Yeah.
But that does exist.
You and I have had 2 deals, I think, in our life, and I can count them on like one hand, and I know exactly what they are, that we were just like, how do we possibly resolve this? It was amazing. I mean, we've had some like tough negotiations, and that's fine. But then there were just 1 or 2 times, and it's interesting because there is a time when I think you must give up, and I've only come to that on such a limited number of times. But it's very valuable, I think, to have that conversation with the broker, because when you say that, it's like the lawyer really has to have a damn good reason why they're pulling the deal, because you wasted all that time. Yes. You don't get a commission. I mean, I'll still get paid, but it's like I've already like tripled the amount of time, quadrupled the amount of time that we would have budgeted for it, and we're going to go nowhere. And they're just, I don't want to say stuck on stupid because that's not very nice, but they're just stuck on points that are just simply unreasonable and non-marketable. What are questions that you have, like driving around town? Do you ever think about picking up the phone and just asking me?
You know, yes, and I should follow through with that. And I'm trying to think of what.
Because
what
there are people on your
that's-
team, and one thing I appreciate about them is that they do call me and ask me questions, like random questions about the building, about how to read a lease provision. And I love it because we can sit down and then we talk for 5 minutes. They totally then know like how to like interpret this thing. And they've done the right thing because, again, I'm like, you know, I don't charge for these things, right? So it's like they don't feel like, oh, like if I call my lawyer, I'm going to have to pay him like $100 to get an answer to my question. You just get an answer to your question, right? Because I see this all as part of the overall like representation of the landlord is answering questions about leases from brokers that may come up. And it's so important, right? Because you don't want to pay the bill, but you also really should know the answer to the question or bounce an idea off of someone.
That's
you know?
right. Someone, you know, leverage your expertise. And so
absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Just as I like to leverage the expertise of the brokers that totally understand the market better than I do. I mean, I'm not walking around buildings and, you know, Las Colinas, like talking to other tenant, you know, talking to tenant brokers or whatever. Like you guys totally know the real, you have the boots on the ground intelligence, you know? All right. Well, Tabitha, thank you so much for coming. It is such a pleasure working with you. You are a ray of sunshine when we work together. And you know your broker is good when I'm touring other buildings and I say, oh, I do leasing for, you know, these buildings. And they said, you know, Tabitha, she's wonderful. And the building is run so well. So thank you, Tabitha. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, David. The pleasure's all mine. And I too feel the exact same way. You are unique to work with. And I mean that in all the best ways. It's absolutely wonderful. And your personality makes it so enjoyable. And like I said, everybody wants to work with who they like. And
absolutely.
I absolutely love working with you. You make every deal a little bit easier.
That's what I want to hear.
That's
what I want to do. Thank you so much, Tabitha.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks.